Carlo Ancelotti put it best. He said, quote, "This team is special," end quote. Those words came after his Real Madrid beat Liverpool 1-0 at the Stade de France on Saturday to lift a record-extending 14th UEFA Champions League title. Madrid, who came from behind to beat PSG, Chelsea and Manchester City en route to this year's final, needed just one goal to deny the Reds in Paris.
Carvajal finds Casemiro, then to Valverde. Quite an effective passage of play that from Real Madrid. Valverde then drives it in, and they go ahead. Vinicius Jr. The Stade de France erupts with white delight, and Vinicius Jr. fires Real Madrid in front in the Champions League final.
Just one goal, that's all it took. So Carlo Ancelotti, Don Carlo, is now the only manager to win 4 Champions League titles. It's been the season of a lifetime for the 62-year-old who also led Real to glory in La Liga and the Spanish Cup. This is his assessment of Saturday's final.
During the games against PSG, against Chelsea, against Manchester City, a lot of doubt, because I think that today the game was difficult, of course, but not so difficult like we didn't have to come back with the score. And yes, I had doubt, but the player didn't have doubt. The player believe. And also today, I think that the moment that we suffered in the first half, we were under control. I think tactically we played really well. It's true that Liverpool put a lot of pressure on us, shoot a lot of times, but we managed well the game.
The final was also marred by security issues. French officials are saying ticket fraud on an industrial scale resulted in bottlenecks and saw huge numbers of Liverpool fans having to wait in long queues to get into the venue. The match kicked off 36 minutes later than scheduled. Our European football correspondent Simon Evans joins us now to look back at the events from Saturday. Plus, of course, talk about Mr. Ancelotti. Welcome to the Sports Max Zone again, Simon. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Yeah. So I read an account, I've read so many accounts of people who had trouble getting in, people being pepper sprayed. The former Irish international, the ex-Sunderland player Jason McAteer, spoke of his wife and his son being assaulted and pepper sprayed. And so many accounts of people being roughed up as they sought to get in. The French have been quick to blame the Liverpool supporters. Based on your best information, where does truth lie?
You know, when you go on social media, you're seeing, very extreme opinions, and some people would also say that the French minister's comments about industrial scale of fraud also seems a little bit extreme. There undoubtedly have been cases where there have been fraudulent tickets in circulation. There were reports last week of Merseyside police arresting a man in Cheshire for producing fraudulent tickets. So there's undoubtedly something of that has gone on, but it's also clear from multiple reports from people on the scene that there was real disorganization from the security forces around the stadium and a pretty indiscriminate and rash use of tear gas and batons and so on. So the UEFA have said they're going to have an independent investigation into this. They've appointed a Portuguese politician to lead that. And we'll see what conclusions that comes to.
Yeah, yes, indeed. The game now, because when we were watching the game from our location, Brent Sancho and myself were saying, well, after the first 5 minutes or thereabouts, I was saying to him, well, you know, what is true is that Liverpool want to play this game fast. Real have no intention of playing a fast, open game. And so Real have controlled the game by allowing Liverpool to take the ball, to keep the ball, but to be passing the ball slowly, trying to wend their way through the Real Madrid low block. And in that moment I said, look at how Real have controlled the game by appearing to give Liverpool control of the game.
That's absolutely spot on. That's exactly what Ancelotti's tactics were. They went deep. They conceded possession to Liverpool by doing that, but in doing so, they gave Liverpool a choice. Do you want to come and play your normal game and push right on? In which case, we've got a couple of guys up there who are pretty good at counter-attacks. Vinicius Jr and Benzema, if we get them with your midfield and your attack pushed on, or are you going to sit a little bit? And as soon as you sit, you see Liverpool playing at almost walking pace. They never do that normally. Look at it. They're passing the ball around. At Real Madrid, they're not pressing them. They're letting them carry on. And that dictated the tempo of the game and produced this slower game, which totally suited Real Madrid. It didn't work perfectly, of course, because the goalkeepers had a lot of work to do, including that save there. But it did set the tone for the game, and it stopped Liverpool playing that blitzing style which has been so effective.
To be the difference between Liverpool and Real Madrid. Real Madrid secured both La Liga and the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, he's been a revelation this season, hasn't he? I mean, we've seen real growth from him as a player. He's a constant threat, even when he doesn't have the ball. His movement is sharp. He gets around the back. We saw with the goal there that he's ghosted in on the back of Trent Alexander-Arnold, and you really can't sleep against him because he gets into interesting spaces. There he's coming in. I mean, it is bad defending, but he's timed his run perfectly. I've been really impressed with him this season because there were a lot of people when he went there saying, you know, is he a Real Madrid level player? And he's answered that question firmly this season.
I find personally a lot of goalkeepers are underestimated. I know people talk about Alisson and whatnot, but Thibaut Courtois, for me, he should have been awarded points, Simon, for his goalkeeping. Points should have gone to Real Madrid for that.
Yeah, I mean, 3 or 4 saves that he made were absolutely top draw saves. He had other saves to make that you would have expected him to make, but some of those getting down low into the corner for such a tall goalkeeper, that's a great save as well. You know, he was excellent, absolutely no doubt. He deserved the man of the match award, and in many ways won the game for Real Madrid, because for all we can talk about the tactical smartness of Ancelotti, they needed saves like that to get that result.
Yeah, and you know, Carlo Ancelotti, when you listen to him talk or you just look at him, you know, not too many expressions. He isn't very animated. Of course, you know, that didn't work against him. A very, very successful coach, and now he has 4 Champions League titles to his name.
Yes, 2 with AC Milan, 2 with Real Madrid. You know, he's one of my favourite men in football. He really is. He's such a nice guy. I've been fortunate to interview him in like sit-down, long interviews a couple of times. I worked in Italy when he was AC Milan coach. He was an absolute pleasure to deal with because he's such a modest man. The way you see him there, you know, that nice smile, that nice human reaction is really what he's like. It's not a show, and we've got used to a little bit the managers who are very high profile, almost showmen. Klopp certainly is an example of that. Mourinho, to some extent Pep Guardiola as well. Ancelotti's a little bit of a throwback to how things used to be, and he's a really refreshing change because he is a genuinely nice man.
Yeah, the issue, Simon, of how the key cogs in the Liverpool team didn't perform up to expectations. Now, everyone has been raving about Luis Diaz since he came over from Porto. And he's been good in every game that he's played for Liverpool, except the Champions League final. A muted performance up against the right-back Danny Carvajal that everybody in England would tell you is an inferior player compared to Trent Alexander-Arnold. But of the 2 men, he did his job better in that game. He neutralized Luis Diaz, and on the other end, Trent, I don't know what he was doing, must have been dozing when Vinicius Jr crept in behind him to score the Real Madrid goal.
Yeah, they did target Trent a bit though, and we've seen this a few times. There were a few times in the game where Luka Modric whips those balls straight. He's instinctively looking to get the ball over the back of Alexander-Arnold. He did it a couple of times in the first half. And you look at that and think they've worked on that one. They're trying to do that. And we've seen Guardiola do that in City-Liverpool games as well. So managers have worked something out about Trent Alexander-Arnold. That if he can get that ball over his back, over his shoulder, he can be in difficulty. Diaz, yeah, I mean, you know, the selection he went with him, which was a bit of a surprise, ahead of Jota and ahead of Firmino. It didn't really work out. And I just wonder, you know, I was reading an article earlier, somebody was saying that, you know, with Mane and Salah's futures in doubt, really, with their contractual situations, somebody's saying, well, you know, it'd be good for Liverpool to refresh because they've got Diaz, they've got Jota. You know, Mane and Salah are scoring 20 goals a season consistently, and I think Liverpool should be, you know, a little bit calming down about the ability of Jota and Diaz. They are undoubtedly talented players, and Diaz has made a big impression, but in these big games, the proven, tried and tested players have an incredible value, as Real Madrid have proved, because half their team have won the Champions League on multiple times.
Yeah, the point about Thiago Alcantara and that Achilles injury that caused him to leave their final Premier League game early against Wolves, of course, and the fact of the start given to him, he warmed up away from the rest of the main group, which suggested that he wasn't quite right, because that's as good a telltale sign as any, that a player isn't quite right when he warms up away from the main group. And in my view, his presence, he was there on the pitch in body only, because he really wasn't making an impression. And I'm wondering if Klopp will look back and say, maybe I should have gone with another option than Thiago Alcantara to start the game.
There were long discussions going on, weren't there, with Naby Keita before the kickoff, with people putting their arms around his shoulders and talking to him, and you're like, is he being told you're starting now? I mean, it did look for a moment as though Thiago wasn't going to even start. And when we talked about how Real were able to dictate the tempo, that's one thing that Thiago, his main role at Liverpool is to dictate the tempo of their play, and they never managed to do that. And I think part of that would be down to the Ancelotti tactical approach that we talked about, but also because Thiago wasn't 100% on his game. And you know, I was surprised with a few things with that selection. I mean, Konate, I thought, had a decent game, but I was still surprised he got the nod ahead of Matip as well.
Yeah, you know, Simon, we can do this substantively another day, but we have to do it while you're here, at least broach the topic of Liverpool's place, because it seems sensible to me to wait to present a garland of roses after things have been achieved. I've never seen the Kentucky Derby winner given that wreath of flowers before the race is run. I've never seen a king crowned before there's a vacancy filled on the throne. And yet, so many pundits fell over themselves over the course of the season, telling us that this Liverpool team is not only the greatest club side in Liverpool's history, but the best club side we've ever seen, even after they lost the Premier League fair and square to Manchester City. Some people would have you believe that, yeah, they lost the Premier League, but they were still the best team in England this season. And even some pundits after the Champions League final were telling us that, yeah, they lost the final, but they are still the best team in Europe. Simon, evidence shows us of how ridiculous all that greatest ever chatter was, because until the day that time ends, every football team will be measured by what you have won. Am I wrong or am I right?
No, absolutely. It doesn't mean Liverpool aren't a great team. This is the confusion people get into when you see these debates on social media, that if you turn around and say, well, no, you can't call Liverpool a truly great team when they've finished second in the Premier League and lost the final of the Champions League. An excellent team who've had a really, really good season, you know, pushed all the way to win both trophies. But they didn't do it. And, you know, Real Madrid have a winning culture. Carlo Ancelotti himself, with his record, has proven he has a winning culture. They had a quiet belief that they were going to win that game. Liverpool talked themselves up before the game. Klopp never stops telling us how wonderful his players are. They're mentality monsters. They're incredible. They're amazing. He almost runs out of superlatives for talking about his team. Listen to how Ancelotti talks before the game. It's going to be a tough game. We're going to try and impose ourselves. We're going to do this. Very, very low-key approach to talking about it, because he's a winning mentality. He knows that what happens between those white lines is what counts. And Liverpool don't have that winning mentality yet. They win a lot of football matches, but they've finished behind Manchester City for 4 of the last 5 seasons. Now, for a great team, great teams we don't talk about Michael Jordan's Chicago Bulls being a great team because they lost 4 out of 5 finals. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. You have to win these things. And they may well go on and do that in the next few years, but they're not there yet.
Yeah, and the last thing to consider is this. A very important statistic. I saw my favorite writer, Barney Ronay, raise it in one of his columns for The Guardian early today. And the Mail picked up a story. I'm sure it was from Barney's column. The fact is, Liverpool won the Carling Cup on penalties. They didn't score in regular time. They won the FA Cup on penalties. They didn't score at all. Mind you, they did score 18 of 19 penalties, so that's outstanding. And then they play a Champions League final, Simon, and they didn't score. Something must be wrong. It can't be a candidate for greatest of all time team if you've played 3 finals and failed to score a single goal in those 3 finals.
And here's another stat to add to that, which is in their games against the other members of the top 4 in the Premier League, those 6 matches, they didn't win a single one.
There you go.
They didn't lose one, they drew them all. They drew all 6 games against teams in the top 4 in the Premier League. So no, they're not there yet. And, you know, this scene here, you know, there's a lot of fans mocking them, of course, for going on this double-decker bus, and they planned it beforehand, regardless of the result, because of those cup wins. But to be going round on an open-top bus, would Real Madrid be going round on an open-top bus in Madrid if they'd lost the Champions League final and finished second to Barcelona in La Liga? We know the answer to that. There's no way they'd be doing that.
Yeah.
I have to add this since you brought that up. I remember, was it 2008, Simon? Luzhniki Stadium, Champions League final, Manchester United beating Chelsea. And it was a double that they won that day. They won the Premier League and the Champions League in the same year. And partly because of the behavior of, I think it was Rangers fans in that UEFA Cup final. The Manchester was kind of unsteady. And United chose not to celebrate winning the Champions League and Premier League double. So you can understand their fans saying, wait, we didn't celebrate that double, but you're celebrating the FA Cup and Carling Cup double. I know it's not an exact comparison, and I'm happy to see the Liverpoolians celebrate, well, the red side anyway, celebrate the 2 triumphs. But I'm just saying that many clubs, as you're alluding to, wouldn't have done it.
No, they'd be disappointed.
And be careful, the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup is not the double, it is a double. And you can insert some other phrase before double as well if you want, but the double is the Premier League and the Champions League, or the Premier League and the FA Cup is the traditional domestic double, you know. But
yeah,
winning two finals on penalty shootouts, they were disappointing games as well. So they're a great team. I've loved watching them. I'm sounding like I'm being very critical of Liverpool. I've enjoyed watching their football over the last few years, but you think there has to be more to come in terms of trophies.
Yeah,
absolutely so. Simon, that's all the time we have, my friend. Thank you very much. All the best.
All the best. Cheers.
Good. Simon Evans there, our man in the UK.
I love how they push City. Thanks for that. Go ahead.
All right, so Real Madrid, Marcelo leaving the club after raising the trophy aloft. He is one of those with the 5 Champions League titles, drawing level with CR7. And this boy who came over from Flamengo, the English pundits who didn't watch a lot of Spanish football then, they still don't watch a lot of it now, said he was rubbish because he was a fullback who couldn't defend. No, the English fullbacks who are all the rage are the ones who play exactly like Marcelo has been playing like for 15 years. It just shows you that, yeah, when their own do it, it's wonderful. When foreigners do it, foreigners are rubbish. Real Madrid are champions of Europe for 14th time, and they've already said they're preparing for title number 15. Break time. Back with more on the Sports Max Zone after this. Thank you for watching Sportsmax on YouTube. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and to click the notification bell to stay informed.